Thank you, Patrick.
As I was saying, no, I'm so happy to be here. And David, he's back at the bar just like college. Thank you for introducing me to this group. I've admired this group from afar for many years. And thanks to Bev and Susan and Crystal for making it happen for me to be here. This is a high-class group. It's a high-class event. Just smell your hand sanitizer. It smells like vodka, not cheap tequila. So you can always tell when it's a good group. It's fun watching people get together after having been apart for so long. It's like getting together with an ex. You don't know whether to hug, shake hands, elbow bump, run away. The last speech I gave in front of a live audience was in March. And so it's kind of like that old tree in the forest thing. If a speaker speaks and no one's there to listen, is he really a professional speaker? And according to the IRS, no, he's not. Not this year. But this is a bittersweet moment because I am giving my first live presentation in front of a real live audience. Thank you. I was complaining at the table, and James said, I serve the airline industry. Get in line, pal. But it's also a bitter moment for me because this is the first time in 6 months I've actually had to button a pair of pants. And COVID-19 is no joke, guys. So for 10 years, I was a professional songwriter in Nashville. When I graduated from Southern Miss, Dave went to graduate school, and I went to Nashville. My parents were not thrilled with that decision. And for 10 years, I wrote songs for a Music Row publishing company in Nashville. Made hundreds of dollars. But so when things happen bad in my life, challenging in my life, one way I process change is I write songs about it. And so when COVID came along back in March and it really hit hard in April, I started working on some songs. I still remember 6 months ago when some people were calling this virus a hoax. Well, stay at home orders and social distance calls. Morons on spring break infecting us all. Caught somewhere in the middle of the paper goods aisle. I had to use coffee filters for a while. Now it's time to drink wine. 3:30. Trying to survive while on quarantine. Watching Joe Exotic, the Tiger King. Oh, look at the time. It's time to drink wine. Yeah, that's the kind of stuff my wife would come home after working all day at Elon University and said, this is what you've been doing? I'm like, don't talk to me, I'm drunk. No, for 10 years I was a songwriter, and I wrote some pretty good songs, but if you want to get rich in Nashville, you have to write some pretty great songs. And so I want to play you a few pretty good songs tonight, and I hope you enjoy them. I mentioned my wife. She's the one I married 16 years ago. And, you know, how many of you here by a show of hands are in love? I like that. His hand went straight up quick. Got it. I'm assuming it's to you. Okay. No, it's serious. You can always tell the ones who are well trained. I asked that question not long ago. I was in Montgomery, Alabama, giving a speech last year, and I said, "Who here's in love?" And a woman elbowed her husband right in the ribs. He said, "I raised my hand." She said, "Not near quick enough." No, I'm in love with a beautiful woman. I'm in love with a sweet-talking Southern woman. Do we have anybody in the room who identifies as a sweet-talking Southern woman? Thank you. It would have been awkward had well, no, I get that sometimes. I speak all over the country, so sometimes, especially like in New Jersey, they cross their arms. And they look at me. And so I have to educate them as to what a sweet-talking Southern woman is all about. And I say there is a difference between sweet-talking Southern and manipulative. And it's very small. I'll give you an example. I was driving with my wife past Lowe's home improvement store. I shop at Lowe's. I'm a do-it-yourselfer. Not a very good one, but I do attempt do-it-yourself. And so I realized that I needed a can of paint. Not a big can of paint, just a quart-sized can of high-gloss white paint. Had to touch up some banisters in the house. And so I turned to my wife and I said, darling, I need to run into Lowe's and grab a can of paint. I bet you find something you need. I walked into Lowe's for a quart-sized can of high-gloss white. And I walked out of Lowe's with a receipt for 1,200 square feet of new carpet. I got no idea how it happened. Some of y'all are saying, I know exactly how it happened. I get home, I'm standing at the foot of the stairs looking at the carpet. All of our upstairs is carpeted. And I'm thinking it doesn't look that bad for 25-year-old carpet. I mean, the high traffic areas had worn down to a nice Carolina blue. But the new carpet was coming in 2 weeks. My wife, who is 5 feet tall, looks up at me and she said, darling, what do you hate most about painting? I thought, painting? Well, I guess try not to drip on the carpet. She said, I am so glad you said that. What other time are you ever going to be able to paint this house and not care if you drip all over the carpet? Painted 4 bedrooms, 2 baths, and a hallway. You know what does not go with freshly painted bedroom walls? Old bedroom furniture. I spent over $10,000 on a quart-sized can of high-gloss white paint. Who's the entrepreneur? But I've not always been as lucky in love. There was a time when I was a single man. Let me tell you something. By the way, that story he told about the fraternity house wasn't entirely true. Because yes, we did have big parties at our house. And yes, I had a full sound system set up in my fraternity house room. And I would play and people would come. We'd shove 30 people inside that little room. And yes, a lot of beautiful women came through. But guess who cannot talk to the beautiful women? The guy holding the guitar singing the songs. My roommate met his wife because of a party that I threw in my fraternity house room. She ended up leaving him. But anyway. But no, I've not always been as lucky in love. There was a time when I was a single man, living the life of a single musician. Nashville, Tennessee. Had my share of relationships. Some good, some bad, some train wrecks. I want to sing y'all a song I wrote about a train wreck. I like to call her Becky. Now, Becky's not a bad person. I'll tell you how we met. I was playing at a club one night in Nashville, and I saw her walk in the back of the room with her friends. I noticed her instantly. She was tall, had long dark hair, had on a pair of leather pants. I'll never forget those leather pants. She smelled like a brand new F-150 pickup truck. It was the 90s. Anyway, we got to talking, and before I knew it, we were on a date, and then another date, and then we were head over heels, madly in love for 2 weeks. No, I had to break up with her. She had a habit I couldn't get used to. She was too affectionate in public with other dudes. My philosophy is, you do me wrong, I'm going to write a song about it. Spread it all over the country. Her faded sweater's all she left behind. Fading scent reminding me of happier times. She's run off with someone new. Now this sweater's all I've got to see me through. Whoa, nothing cleans a toilet like cashmere. Nothing scrubs the bowl like what I've got. I'm trying hard to wipe away her memory. while I scrub those pesky stains off of my pot. Well, looky here, in my truck, she left a toothbrush. Well, I should send it to her new address. Now that's the Christian thing to do. But hey, my dog needs clean teeth too. Let her new boyfriend worry about her breath. Whoa, nothing cleans a toilet like cashmere. Thank you very much. I keep songs like that in the file called another song Garth Brooks did not record. So, as a Nashville songwriter, I would oftentimes find myself performing in downtown Nashville bars. Bars on 2nd Avenue, Printer's Alley, Broadway. Some of you have been to these bars. And there was one night in particular, over 20 years ago, but I remember it as if it were yesterday. And the reason I remember this club so clearly is because of the couple that was sitting right here on the front row. I remember them for 3 reasons. Number one, they were very old. I thought it was late for them to be out. But there they were, sitting right on the front row of a honky-tonk bar in Nashville, Tennessee. Number 2, they were very country. Now, there's nothing in the world wrong with being from the country. But when you blend it with number 3, you're going to have a problem. They were very loud. Like your parents or grandparents, they would start to talk and start to bicker, and they didn't care who was listening. I'd introduce a song, and I'd say, this next song I wrote with my good buddy, Mark McDonald. The woman turned to her husband and said, what'd he just say? He wrote that song in McDonald's. The man said, no, he wrote the song with a man named Mark McDonald. She said, well, all right. Well, I'd play another song. This next song I wrote with my good buddy, Gabe Martin. Woman turned to her husband. What'd he just say? What's he doing writing songs in a gay bar? He said, no, he's writing songs with a man named Gabe. She said, well, all right. Well, I came to the last song, the big finale. Could not wait to get off the stage because people were watching them and not me. And I said, this last song I wrote for a woman who I was very much in love with, but we are no longer together because she complained more than any person I ever knew, and she was the worst kisser I ever knew. What did he just say? He said he's getting ready to play your song. No, I love being up here so much. I can't tell you. My voice is, you can tell I hadn't done this in 6 months. I start to sound like a cross between George Bush and Bill Clinton. But from people I've talked to, I think we'll go with George Bush tonight. But no, I grew up in Alabama. Anybody here from Alabama? War Eagle. Thank you. Thank you. Where are you from in Alabama? Birmingham. So you will probably know this story. Anybody who grew up in Alabama has heard the story about the Boll Weevil. A Boll Weevil. Has anybody heard of the Boll Weevil? Yeah, okay. So the Boll Weevil is a little ugly bug that came from Mexico. It flies fast and loves cotton. You see, back in the 1800s, the cash crop in Alabama, towards the turn of the century, was cotton. Until the Boll Weevil came. In 1909, the Boll Weevil showed up from Mexico in Alabama. And within 3 years had decimated the cash crop. Had decimated cotton. And Alabama was in ruins. Until they had an idea. You see, up until the late 1800s, no one really thought about peanuts much. It wasn't until Booker T. Washington began to evangelize on behalf of the peanut, and P.T. Barnum started to sell them in his circus. That's when peanuts started to enter the American consciousness. Well, it turns out that Alabama has perfect climate, South Alabama especially, has perfect climate for growing peanuts. And so within 3 years, they were the world's biggest producer of peanuts in the world. So if you drive down Main Street in Enterprise, Alabama, you will see a statue, a 13-foot tall statue of a woman in Grecian robes holding above her head a bug, because it allowed Alabama to find new ways to diversify and to grow. And so I've thought a lot about that story. We grew up hearing that story, but I thought a lot about it about a month after COVID hit, because for the first month, I was pretty much in the fetal position looking for a happy place. But I started to look for ways to grow, as I think all of you did. As entrepreneurs, you have to. And as you also know, a lot of people make a lot of money during times of struggle. And I'm still trying to be one of those. But I think about the Boll Weevil. One of my favorite artists is Pink. Anybody like Pink? Her drummer's a friend of mine. I met him through the National Speakers Association. And he'd always keep me updated on what's going on the road. And I thought about him in November because I was watching the People's Choice Awards. Now, I'm not one to watch award shows, but I am one to lose the remote control and get too lazy to get up and change the channel. And so I watched the entire People's Choice Awards, and I saw Pink receive an award. She said something in her speech that really had a big impact on me. And I usually don't care much what celebrities have to say, but it made a difference, and I think you'll agree. She said, kindness has become an act of rebellion in this country. And I thought, wow, that's really powerful, because it's become unusual and remarkable for people just to be nice to each other. And she also said, I don't care about your politics. I care about your kids. And that really impacted me, because I'm a family man. I've got 3 kids. I was talking to people at dinner night about their kids. I know David has his house full of girls. And so I want to hear about your kids. I don't care about your politics at all. And so I sat up that night and I wrote this song. And I sent it to my buddy, hoping Pink would get a kick out of it. I don't think she heard it. Tell me about your life. I want to hear about your dog. Does he come round when you call him, or just lay there like a log? Tell me about your kids. Oh, what are they into? Do they hang out in the woods till dark, just like we used to do? I don't care about your politics or what China's going through. I don't want to talk religion or if you voted red or blue. Tell me about you. I want to hear about your truck, all the scratches and the dents, storied imperfections, some cut too deep to fix, tattoos and scars. Tell me where they all came from, written in the paint and stitches, proof of just how far you've come. I don't care about your politics or trade philosophy. I want to hear about your favorite song and how it came to be. Seems everybody's picking teams in a game we're bound to lose. Not sure I've got the answer, but no, it ain't on cable news. Tell me about you. I don't care about your politics or how much money you make. Tell me about an act of kindness or how much you gave away. Tell me about you. Thank you. I wanted to make some changes. And so that's when I decided I wanted to make 21 new friends in 21 days. Now, the reason I came up with that is we've all heard the statistic, the saying, the adage, that it takes 21 days of repetitive activity to develop a habit. We've heard that, right? It's not true. It's actually 68 days. But 21 sounded a lot easier than 68. And so I wanted to decide and prove to myself that making friends could become a habit. And so I decided to make 21 friends in 21 days, and there are two conditions. One, I could not have met them before. And two, I had to find out about them. I couldn't talk about myself. New territory. And so I made the decision to start. And one thing that surprised me about it was that I was really not looking forward to it. I thought that I would embrace this as a fun challenge, but I was not looking forward to this. And so finally I worked up the courage and I started what I've now called the Friendship 21 Project. And so the first person I met, her name was Susan. Now, Susan is an Elon University student. I met her at the gym. Now, I completely get the creepiness factor of a guy walking up to a young girl in the gym saying, "Tell me about you." She had an Elon University t-shirt on. My wife teaches at Elon, so I said, "Oh, you go to Elon?" She said, "Yes." I said, "My wife teaches at Elon." So instantly there was a connection. It was safe ground. So we started talking. I found out that she was a senior graduating in May. She getting a degree in counseling and psychology. She had applied to 10 graduate schools because apparently it's very hard to get into that program. And she was going back to Connecticut upon graduation. The next day I met Tim. Tim was a fireman. He was a detective. He used to be a fireman, but his wife was really nervous about him riding the truck. So now he's a detective, and I learned that the number 3 truck went out 3,000 times last year. That's pretty impressive since it's Burlington. A lot of fires. So I went on. I met Tracy, who is the barista at Starbucks. By the way, if you do this, don't go to a busy Starbucks. This was in Harris Teeter. We had time to chat. I found out that she wanted to travel the country in a fifth-wheel trailer with her husband. I started meeting people. It became fun. It became exciting. It became an assignment. And that was evidenced by the day that I met Alicia. Alicia works at the hospital. It was January. I was doing my yearly physical. And so I go to the hospital for my physical at the clinic there. And so I got to stand in line with all the other people, mostly older people. And so I'm queued up in line. Stepping forward, there were 4 windows that I was going to check in through, one of 4. And I finally realized I'm going to that one, and that's where Alicia was. I knew her name was Alicia because it said so on the little nameplate. But Alicia had no interest in making eye contact with me. Alicia was a severe-looking woman, and she sat at her computer, and she was typing away, not looking at me as I'm standing there in front of her window. And then she gave me one of these. And that's when I started to get a little frustrated because I speak on customer service for a living. I was not receiving good customer service. And so I felt my blood begin to rise a little bit. And then I decided, you know what? She's got to be my new friend for the day. Let's see how this works. Here's your test, buddy. So I noticed 2 pictures taped to the side of her computer. Pictures of she and what I assumed was her husband at Disney World. And all I said was, "That looked like a fun trip." And she went, "Oh my God, it was fabulous." And she began to tell me all about the trips to Disney World. So they go every year. She told me where they stay, where they ate, their favorite rides. And I finally said, whoa, Alicia, stop. I can tell that you're more than a Disney fan. You're a bit of a Disney nut, aren't you? And she laughed. And that's when I said, "I bet you've got your own mouse ears." I mean, who doesn't? She pulled her lapel back, and she had Mickey Mouse ears on her lapel. And then she spun her chair around, had a Disney World jacket hanging over the back of her chair. And all I could think of was, how valuable would this little bit of information be to a pharmaceutical sales rep or medical supply rep? Somebody probably who continues to talk about that horrible woman at Alamance Hospital who they can never get through. But I guarantee you I could get through to see the president over there if I got through Alicia. And so I started this idea about Friendship 21. And the focus of my speech for, almost 20 years Actually, more like 15. I used to speak in high schools. Only audience that wants you to fail for entertainment value. But the core of my message was customer service, and I still believe in serving customers, but my mindset shifted around it after this experience, because we don't need more customers, we need more friends. And I think it implies, especially for people as entrepreneurs, people who run their own businesses, who deal with vendors and customers and all the things we do by ourselves. And so that's when the Friendship 21 project started and kept going until COVID hit. And then I found myself, all the momentum that I had gained, I lost. And we all did. And we've all realized how, as we live in a socially distanced world now, we're starting to socially tighten again. Thank God. But we have to start putting some of these skills back to work for us, skills we may have lost over the last 6 months. Went to University of Southern Mississippi, but I grew up in Auburn, Alabama. War damn it. You know, you can tell an Auburn fan says War Eagle. A real Auburn fan says War damn Eagle. But a washed in the blood Auburn fan just goes, War damn. But I grew up in Auburn. I went to Southern Miss, and people ask me all the time, why didn't you go to Auburn University? And my answer is always the same. I did. That was a great year. So I graduated from Southern Miss in 1994. And I remember walking across the graduation stage, shaking Dr. Aubrey K. Lucas's hand, handing my diploma, or what I thought was my diploma. And I got in my car and I drove as fast as I could back to my parents' house in Auburn. A few nights later, I'm standing at the foot of my parents' bed, and they're speaking the words that all parents long to hear from their new college graduate. I said, Mother, Father, thank you. Thank you for teaching me the value of an education. Thank you for teaching me how to set a goal and see it through to the end. Now I'm moving to Nashville, Tennessee to become the next Garth Brooks. It's not the conversation they had prayed for. That's sure not the conversation they had paid for. But after a long discussion, they realized that I was serious about turning my passion into a profession. And my father looked me in the eye and he said something I'll never forget. He said, son, I'll support you in spirit. Get a job. And so I got a job at a little restaurant called the Green Hills Grill. Now, if you ate at the Green Hills Grill in the mid-1990s, you ate at what I considered one of the best restaurants in Nashville. You know the Green Hills Grill. It wasn't a high-end restaurant, but it was busy all the time. 80% of the time, there was a line out the door. They did no advertising at the Green Hills Grill. I used to wonder, how could a restaurant be this successful and do no advertising? It was just word of mouth. Was it the food? Yeah, the food was great at the Green Hills Grill, but a lot of restaurants have great food and people don't stand in line. Great service. Yeah, service was good, but people don't stand in line simply for service. I think the success of the Green Hill Grill was a combination of three things: good food, good service, and Mrs. Stevens. You see, Mrs. Stevens was a little old woman who used to come into that restaurant every day at 4 p.m. She sat at the same table, in the same chair, ordered the exact same thing: hot fudge brownie, ice cream on the side, black decaf coffee. And then she'd enjoy a cigarette. It was the 90s. And so we would talk to Mrs. Stevens, because those of you who have worked in restaurants, 4 o'clock is not the busiest time. So we got a chance to stop by and chat with her, and she loved that. She loved when we come over and talk to her. And one day, I was at the server station rolling silverware. Even all these years later, I could roll a tight roll of silverware faster than just about anybody. And I look at the hostess stand, and there she was, waiting to be seated. And I realized that I had her section that day. And so I put her brownie order in, had her cup of coffee waiting on her when she sat down. I stopped back by after her food was delivered, and I said, you know, Mrs. Stevens, we sure enjoy seeing you in here every day. My word, you must love brownies. You come back every day. And that's when she put her fork down, and she looked up at me, and she smiled, and she said, Patrick, darling. I love it when they call me darling. She said, darling, I don't come here just for the brownie. She said, I come here because of you. And I come here because of Gail and Bridget and Doug. And she began to point out the servers who were working the floor that day. But then her eyes misted over, and she simply said, y'all make me feel so special. You see, people used to come into that restaurant 2 or 3 times a week. Not just because of the food, not just because of the service, but because they knew they were going to be greeted and treated as friends. Who are your Mrs. Stevens? I bet if I asked any of you to name, you could name 3 of them right now. People who you depend on, people who impact you, your business, your culture. You know, that personal connection that she received and that most people receive by going there, it can't be achieved. And we've discovered Zoom is great, right? You know, up until COVID, Zoom was a 70s TV show, but now everybody knows Zoom. But it's hard to create that connection over a Zoom call, that personal interaction. What are you doing to make your Mrs. Stevens feel important, feel special, feel valued? What are you doing to become rememberable? Now, some of you are thinking, rememberable is not a word. Well, it is in our house. When my daughter was 5 years old, she coined that phrase. She didn't mean to, but we were heading to Disney World. I love Disney as well. And I get to speak in Orlando quite a bit during normal times because Orlando's a big convention town. And so oftentimes, and I realize how creepy this sounds, I'll slip away and go to the park by myself. Now, I don't ride. It's a small world. I mean, I keep to the big rides. But I love Disney too. And so if I get booked into summer, I've turned that into a family vacation that I could also write off. And so you got a little chill, didn't you? I love having CPAs in the family. But so we went down to Disney. I spoke for my client and we went to the park. And for the next 3 days, we rode everything we could possibly ride. We ate everything we could possibly eat. And eventually the money ran out, which is the real magic of Disney. It makes your money, poof, disappear. And so we packed up the car and we headed back to North Carolina. About 30 minutes outside of town. I'm driving along and I look in the rearview mirror at my 3 kids. Jack, my oldest, he's 19 now. He was 13 at the time. And well, first of all, I said, guys, how did you like Disney this year? And Jack rolled his eyes, pulled that headphone to one side and said, it was all right. My son, Robert, he's my middle son. He's now 15. He said, oh, Daddy, it was awesome. I loved it. Thank you. He's my favorite. But then there was Meredith, my little girl. She's now 12 years old, had 3 teeth pulled today to make room for the braces. That was a lovely experience watching your 12-year-old high as a kite. I've never liked you much. No, she was, we call her the princess. And the reason I called her princess is because she had on $475 worth of bippity-boppity boutique princess gear. She was sitting there back there with a little crown on her head, magic fairy wand. She said, oh, Daddy, Disney was memorable. I said, sweetheart, do you mean memorable? She said, no, Daddy, Disney was memorable. You see, Disney had an impact on my daughter the way it had impacted me, and certainly the way it impacted Alicia. Better than good, better than great. That emotional connection that created joy. Joy grows to passion. Passion grows into loyalty. And so I believe, and without taking too much time tonight, I believe there are 3 simple things that we can do as entrepreneurs to create that memorable customer experience. for the people we serve. The first one is what I call the extra inch mentality. I'm a little embarrassed that I have notes, but it's been 6 months. The extra inch mentality, that little bit extra that we give when nobody's looking. I grew up mowing yards. That's how I made money when I was a kid. I learned that money doesn't grow on trees, but it did grow in yards, especially in the 1980s. You see, we didn't have big landscaping companies that nip, tuck, and liposucked your yards. You probably had a 12-year-old kid like me pushing that self-propelled lawnmower, meaning in those days we propelled it ourselves, or pushing it up and down. I charged $10 for a small yard, $15 for a big yard, and Judge Nix had the biggest yard in the neighborhood. Now, had I known it would take 6.5 hours to mow, I probably would have charged more than $15. But I did not have a good accountant. Okay. We can turn this into a drinking game. Accountant, cheers! But anyway, one afternoon I was mowing Judge Nix's yard all day long, up one road, down the other, and I finally was coming to the end of the last row. And so I cut my mower off, and I'm pushing it back across the yard, and I look over my shoulder, and I see the row of shrubs that the judge had planted. I'd forgotten that behind those shrubs was a strip of grass. Not very wide, not very long, but I'd forgotten to mow it. And so I had a little conversation with myself, and I said, you know what, you should go back and cut that grass. And I countered with, you can't see it from the street. I'm tired. I'm ready to go home. So I kept pushing the mower to the curb. I looked back over my shoulder. I know I should go back and cut that grass, but I'm already to the curb now. No one's going to notice it. So eventually Judge Nix came out, gave me 15 $1 bills, and I sat down on the curb. My dad arrived to pick me up. He got out of the car, started walking around the yard to inspect my work. I saw him walking towards the shrubs. I thought, uh-oh, somebody's going to notice. He gets over there. He sees I didn't mow it, gave me one of these. How many of y'all seen one of these? Yeah, it does not mean come over here. Let me tell you what a great job you've done. He said, son, you're not finished. I said, Daddy, I'm tired. He said, son, you're not finished. What do I always tell you? I said, Dad, no one's going to notice that. He said, what do I always tell you, son? Don't ever do a job unless you're willing to sign your name to it. Are you willing to sign your name to this job? Yes, I am. And so I didn't say a word. He didn't say a word. We walked back across the yard. I helped him get the mower in the back. Then I got in the car. Well, he took it right out. He pushed the mower across the yard, started it up. Took about 40 seconds and cut that little strip of grass. He got back over to me and said, son, has the judge paid you? And I said, oh, yes, sir, $15. He said, I'm so glad. Now go knock on his door and give it back. I said, say what? He said, give it back. You don't get paid for incomplete work. I'd been mowing that yard for almost 7 hours in the 95-degree Alabama heat and humidity, only bested by Mississippi heat and humidity. And I couldn't understand why he would do such a thing. I wouldn't speak to him for a week. He didn't care. Wish my kids wouldn't speak to me for a week sometimes. People always ask me, you travel so much, or you used to travel so much. How can you stand being away from your kids? It ain't hard. I gotta be honest with you. First thing I do when I get to the hotel room is I pull that top bedspread back. I saw that 60-minute special too. And then I just lay there in bed doing snow angels. Because even though my daughter's 12, sometimes we end up with one more than we started with at night. And so I just enjoyed the space. And so, anyhow, I forgot where the hell I was. But no, I couldn't understand why my dad would do such a thing until 25 years later. My wife and I got married. I moved to Burlington. We bought a house. So we had to do some work on it. And so I opened up some space downstairs, knocked out a wall, put down beautiful hardwood floors, exotic hardwood. It said so right on the box. And I discovered, and I painted. My wife does let me paint. And I discovered why they call it faux finish. When you're married to a sweet-talking Southern woman, you're going to paint it faux times. Faux you finished. So I was painting the little half bath downstairs, which did not seem like that big of a job at the time until I got into it. And I started scraping wallpaper and sanding it and priming it, painting it. And finally I was finished after all day of working. And I walked back in after I cleaned my brushes up and I inspected my work. And I pat myself on the back. But if you look down behind the toilet, you would have noticed a little piece of wall about that big that I'd missed. And I thought to myself, no one's going to notice that. And it was as if my father reached through 25 years of time and smacked me on the back of the head. I grew up in the South. We got smacked a lot. And so it was as if he reached through time and said, son, this is what I was trying to teach you. We've all heard the phrase, go the extra. Yeah, but that's not it. A lot of people go the extra mile. But oftentimes what differentiates us is the extra inch. That little bit extra. That people don't do because they think it doesn't matter. They think they can't afford it. They think it's not going to impact the experience. But it's oftentimes that little bit extra that truly sets us apart from the rest. That's what we call the extra inch mentality. I thought I knew the extra inch mentality until I got married. You see, I was 33 years old when I got married. Did anybody wait a little bit later to get married in life? Yeah. How old were you when you got married? 34. Okay, when you're 33 or 34, you've moved on from the stage in life where your mama says, son, when you going to get married and give me some grandchildren? Now she just tries to convince her Bible study that you do like girls. So I got married at 33, and and we started having kids pretty much right away. Jack is my stepson. He's now 19 years old. I've always called him my bonus child. We've had pet names for each other. I call him Jackaroo. Even to this day, he calls me, you're not my real dad. You can't tell me what to do. Actually, now he just calls me for money. But he's at State. He's at NC State right now. And we get him Wolfpack. Yeah, me too. I added a new color to my repertoire after I started paying tuition over there. But he does not have a car at State because our rule in the house is you don't get a car after you've wrecked 2 cars. And so when he was 16 years old, or actually right before he turned 16, he came to us, and he's got a piece of paper in his hand. And written on that piece of paper is the name of 5 different vehicles that we can choose from to buy him when he turns 16. I said, Jack, what makes you think you're getting a car when you turn 16? He said, well, all my friends are getting cars. I said, well, that's a whole different conversation. If you get a car, you're going to have to earn it. He said, well, how do I have to earn it? I said, okay, a couple things. Number 1, straight A's. He said, straight A's? Straight A's. No negotiation. Well, he's a real smart kid. I knew he could do it. He said, what else you got? I said, I want you to read your Bible every night. I know, I'm messing with him. He said, every night? I said, every single night. He said, okay, what else? I said, you got to cut your hair. He said, cut my hair? What's wrong with my hair? Well, he didn't have real long hair that a lot of us had in the 80s, but, I didn't have real long hair, but my hair did come down like this. But he had that shaggy haircut that a lot of the teenage boys had. And so we got his first report card. The boy had not just straight A's. Oh, you'll love this, David. 4.35 GPA. Had no idea that was even a possibility. Checked on him one night after he had gone to bed. He's asleep with his Bible across his chest. Now, I've been there myself. But I'm also not naive enough to think that a kid who gets a 4.3 doesn't know how to go to sleep with the Bible laying across his chest for effect. But I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. but he had still not cut his hair. I said, Jack, man, 2 out of 3 is not bad, but 2 out of 3 is not going to get you a car. He said, well, Dad, I was reading there in that Bible. Jesus had long hair. I said, keep reading, Jack. You'll see Jesus walked everywhere he went. I have actually now, the decision was, Jack, I'm not going to get you a car right away because you are going to have to earn some of this car. But I've discovered that Uber, the monthly Uber bill that I do pay, is a lot less expensive than a car payment, and there's no DUIs. I wish we had Uber when we were in college. So my son Robert, my middle son, he is 15 years old. He's a soccer player. We got any club soccer parents in the, oh my gosh, that's a whole new level of crazy. Only thing bigger and crazier than club soccer is cheer, which my daughter is involved with that. But, yeah, so we got some cheer folks. So Robert he's also my sensitive child. He's the one who would call me into his bedroom every night before he went to bed. And he'd say, lay with me, Daddy, just for a little while. And I would, because I knew that he wouldn't ask much longer. And so now he says, get out of my room, Dad. I got to shave. But I think that need for closeness, though, started when he was 2 because I bought him a little plastic lawnmower. You know the little plastic lawnmowers that make noise and make bubbles? His favorite thing in the world was to follow behind me when I was out in the yard, going out to pay the lawn man. It's just precious. But then my daughter Meredith, and this is all leading somewhere. Meredith, she's the one who's got me wrapped. You know, I mean, you know how it is. I mean, you don't love your daughters more, you just love them different. And that's the way it was for Meredith. And that's why when she was in the 6th grade, I was on the road. My wife, Leslie, called me and she said, we got a problem. I said, what's the problem? She said, Meredith, we just got a letter that Meredith is going to have to take sex education this year. I said, what's the problem? She goes, well, I'm going to have the real talk with her, but you may want to chime in and set things up a little bit as her father. With the boys, it just went straight over their head. A little giggling, but that's about it. But I was afraid it was going to have an impact on Meredith because they do get graphic. They don't just point at stuff like they did when we were in school. And so I decided to have a little bit of a talk with her. And so I stayed up late one night and I wrote a few things down and I looked a few things up and I created the outline for what I considered was a good talk for a father to have with his daughter as she goes into this period of her life. So I'm driving her to school one morning and I look over and I said, sweetheart, I want to talk to you about something. You have to take sex education this year. And she said, what about it, Daddy? I said, well, darling, there comes a time when a man and I panicked. I froze. I had no idea what to say. She looked up at me and she goes, Daddy, if you've got questions, just ask. So when I became a husband, that's the same day I became a father. And life changed for me. And one way that I deal with change is I embrace it by writing songs about it. So maybe you may find some familiarity in this song. I used to be quite the rounder till that blessed day that I found her. A wedding ring and a kiss and a short honeymoon. 60 days and the stick had turned blue. She told me it could take up to a year. She was wrong. Now my eyes are droopy and I'm cleaning up poopy and sleep is a distant memory. Can't play golf anymore, buying Huggies at the store, put formula in my coffee. Now I love my wife and I love my life. There's nothing different I would do. But now I'd give $1 million for a day without hollers and a peaceful visit to the bathroom. I used to be so debonair, walking tall without a care, never had a single hair out of place. Now I'm singing wiggle songs, warming bottles all night long, wiping baby puke off of my face. My wife and my boys fill me up with so much joy, could not love them anymore. But now I think there'll come a time when I'll surely lose my mind if I see another purple dinosaur. I used to go to dinner and a show, candlelight and Merlot, then some smooching on the couch by the fire. Now it's chicken fingers, mac and cheese, kissing boo-boos on skin knees, peanuts out of nostrils with the needle nose pliers. I'm no longer in fashion, brother, I got passion. Should write about us in Time magazine. Call it One Day in the Life of a Husband and a Wife in the All-American Family. Call it One Day in the Life of a Husband and a Wife in the All-American Family. Thank you. So I gave you one mentality, which is extra inch. The next one's what I call the cheers mentality. And the cheers mentality is very simple. The way we make people feel will impact the way they interact with us. If we make people feel good about them, they're going to gravitate towards us. They're going to do business with us. Our work environment is going to be more productive. I learned this from my dry cleaners, McPherson's Cleaners, Burlington, North Carolina. I was taking a pile of laundry to the cleaners one day, and I started to count the dry cleaners that I was passing along the way. And I began to wonder, why have I been doing business here for so long? It's more expensive, and it's out of my way. And then I pulled up to the glass, to that sliding glass door, and Miss Phyllis opened the door, and she smiled. And she said, "Hey, Patrick, darling, it's good to see you. How's Meredith? I saw on Facebook she had a cheer competition. She looked so cute in that outfit." I'm thinking she better have, as much as that outfit costs. How many goals did Robert score in soccer last month? Oh, how about Jack? Has Jack smiled this month? She knows me. She knows my family. She knows how my wife Leslie likes her clothes done. It's the cheers mentality. Danny Myers, the best-selling author of the book, Setting the Table. Now, he's one of those $60,000 speakers. Y'all might want to try to get in here. The cheap ones just quote him. He says, Danny Myers is a famous New York restaurateur, and he says that service is the technical delivery of a product, but hospitality is the way the delivery of that product makes the recipient feel. Wouldn't it be fair to say that we're all in the hospitality business? You know, I was reading a book, and y'all might have read it. It's a cookbook called The Blue Zone. Have you read The Blue Zone cookbook? It's this guy who traveled the world looking for blue zones. Blue zones are places, clusters in the world where people live to over 100. And so he not only studied what made them tick, what their social environment is like, what they ate, and that's how he made the cookbook. But one thing that he said was that the data shows that people who live alone towards the end of their life live an average of 8 years less than people who are plugged into a community. That's why face-to-face meetings are so important. That's why groups like this are so important, because we know our work environments, and especially as entrepreneurs, oftentimes we don't have the work family that a lot of our counterparts have. As a speaker, I'm a part of my professional association because people who get me, get what I do. I'm doing it because I want to live longer. So as I close, I want to talk about the last mentality, which is what I call the lead the way mentality. How many Starbucks coffee drinkers do we have? Yeah. So Starbucks is, it's not a new concept. It's been around for a long time. But it's not been in Burlington, North Carolina as long as most places. You see, I made it for 10 years in Nashville without paying $4 for a cup of coffee. But I wanted to evolve and grow. And so imagine how excited I was when I saw that Burlington was getting a Starbucks. It was the headline of the newspaper. You remember those things, right? newspapers. It was the headline, and I was so excited. Starbucks comes to Alamance County. I was so excited I called my brother who lives here in Charlotte. He's single, and he sells something. Makes a lot of money. And he would always say, I could never make it in Burlington, not while I'm single. I'll give you 2 reasons why. No Asian fusion restaurants and no Starbucks. That's why I called him. I said, hey, Bubba, guess what? We're getting a Starbucks. He said, you're not ready for Starbucks. I said, what do you mean I'm not ready for Starbucks? He said, Patrick, you still buy your coffee from a gas station. It's true. But I was ready to evolve into a Starbucks coffee drinker. You look so sophisticated. And so I was driving my minivan at the time down Huffman Mill Road, and I looked over where the old SunTrust Bank building used to be, and there it was, grand opening Starbucks. So I pulled into the parking lot. I got out. I took the stairs 2 at a time, and I opened the door, and I stood in line. The line went all the way to the end, all the way to the door. And so I began to feel out of place because I was surrounded by intellectuals, professionals, Elon University students. And I'm standing there in blue jeans and a ball cap, which is the way I dress when I'm not on the road. Darn near where I'm dressed now. But I knew that uncomfortable feeling would disappear with that first cup of Starbucks coffee. I got up to the counter, and I noticed the young lady behind the counter. She was hard to miss. She had earrings that started here, kind of worked their way around, had a little nose ring, and had a spike through her tongue. She said, welcome to Starbucks. May I take your order, please? I said, say what? She said, may I take your order, please? I said, oh, yeah, my order. I'd like a cup of Starbucks coffee. She rolled her eyes. She said, what kind? I went, regular. She rolled her eyes again, pointed to a menu board above her head. That menu board was filled with Italian words like cappuccino, frappuccino, macchiato, late. Latte. I get it now. Thank you. Now, I'd seen these words before. I'm not a complete hick, but I didn't know exactly what they were, how they pertained to my coffee order. So I said, well, give me a kappa. Give me a frap. I heard a foot tapping behind me. Turn around, little bitty dude, round glasses and a goatee. One of those intellectuals. He's looking up at me as if I'm ruining his day. If it was a woman, we would have called her Karen. And I wanted to pat him on the head and say, it'll be okay, little buddy. But I was embarrassed. I was out of my comfort zone. I looked to the young lady for help. She was not going to give any help to me. And so I said, can I just get a plain cup of coffee? She rolled her eyes again, pointed to a lonely urn on the other side of the counter, and poured me a cup. Charged me $3.97. And it tasted no better than my Exxon coffee. I went back to my office. I'm sipping on that coffee. I decided, you know what? I'm going back tomorrow. I must be doing it wrong. So I went back at 8 a.m. I got in line. This time I read the menu board in advance in preparation. I get up to the counter. Welcome to Starbucks. Can I take your order, please? I said, oh, yes. I would like a cappuccino. She said, tall, grande, or venti, skinny or regular, foam or no foam? I said, say what? I mean, I know what tall is. I can figure out grande. We do have Taco Bell there at Burlington. But venti, that's the one that had me confused. I thought tall was tall, not Starbucks. At Starbucks, tall is short. I know what skinny is. Got a couple definitions for regular. Had no idea what they had to do with coffee. Now, let's talk about foam for a second. I'm a professional speaker. I get around. I've been to Myrtle Beach. I've walked along that beach, and I've seen foam wash up on the store. Never once have I said, you know, I think I'm going to scoop some of that up and put it in my coffee. I was right back where I was the day before. I said, just give me a plain cup of coffee. She poured me a cup, handed it to me. I went home. Now I'm angry. I'm sitting at my desk. I'm just seething. But see, I've heard the definition of insanity is a man who tries the same thing over and over again, expecting what? Different results. That was my definition of insanity until I saw the debates last night. You will not know what side I fall on. And so I decided to go back the next day. This time I went back 8 a.m., but I did not get in line. I sat down and I listened. Sometimes we learn best when we listen. And so I listened to the intellectuals, the professionals, the soccer moms. I made mental notes of the vocabulary and syntax, the meter and juxtaposition of phrasing. Why does everybody laugh when I use that word? I know that word. I created this order in my head that I felt bordered on poetry, and I got in line. But I quickly realized I'm listening to the wrong people. I was listening to people on diets, health enthusiasts, endurance athletes. Because when I got up to the counter and she said, "Welcome to Starbucks, may I take your order?" I said, "Oh, yes. I want a double skinny, double decaf, latte, no fat, no whip, no foam." She said, "You want soy?" I said, "No soy." She said, "Is there anything else?" I said, "I'm just getting started. I want you to put that in a tall cup with a short straw, make it extra hot. Give me one of those cute little cardboard cup holders so I don't burn my fingers." She said, "Is that it?" I said, "Ma'am, I'm not even close. In addition, my double skinny, double decaf latte, no fat, no whip, no foam, no soy, total cup, short straw, extra hot with cute little cardboard cup holder. I just gotta have a biscotti." She gave me a cup of hot skim milk and a cookie, tastes like a doggy biscuit. My brother was right. I ain't ready for Starbucks. But imagine my excitement. Thank you. Imagine my excitement when I saw that Burlington, North Carolina was getting a Hooters. I don't even think they serve coffee at Hooters. Do they, Scott? No, that young lady had what I call a point the way mentality. Now, obviously, that story's evolved just a touch. But what's absolutely as accurate now as it was then is that she had a point the way mentality, unwilling to step an inch out of her job description, an inch out of her comfort zone, to recognize that I was on unfamiliar territory. Had she simply said, "Let me help you. Let me make a suggestion," she wouldn't have created a customer. She would have created a fan. When you point the way, you get one-time results. But when you lead the way, you get a lifetime of results. As I close this evening, I want to mention that little restaurant that I talked about at the beginning. What's it called? Green Hills Grill. And so one thing that we were taught at the Green Hills Grill was, and this was by Brian, our general manager. See, the first time I met Brian, he walked in and he spoke 3 words and he kept walking. He didn't say, "Don't be late." He didn't say, "Don't drop dishes." He said, "Remember their names." You see, Brian knew that people come to a restaurant not just for the food, not just for the experience, because of just for the food and service, but for the experience. He knew that people weren't numbers. They taught us that our customers were not a 4-top, a 2-top, a party of 12, and they were certainly not that tip at the bottom of the check. It's so easy oftentimes to think of the people we serve as another number, a policy number, a social security number, an account number. And so I want to close tonight with a poem that I wrote called "I Am Not a Number." And I just maybe serve as a reminder of, as we start the social tightening, to think of the people as just people serving people. I'm not a number, I'm a person. I'm not a number, I'm real. I have joy, hopes, sadness. I'm not a number because I feel. I'm not the cancer in room 311. I'm not the diabetic in 402. I'm not the 4-top in the atrium or the quaint 2.5 bath, 3-bedroom. I'm not the ADHD on the red hall, the lowest test score on the blue. I'm not a number. I'm a person just like you. I'm not a half percentage point or a margin call. I'm not the sum of pounds read on a sale. I'm not row 8, seat 32 or the commission on a sale. I'm not a case to be managed. I'm not the next in line. I'm not a double decaf mocha latte or a 20-year term life. I'm not a number. I'm a person. And I demand your respect. But if you treat me like a number is what you'll get. You see, a number won't stay loyal. If there comes a better deal, a number knows no allegiance because a number cannot feel. Be kind to me. I'll open my heart. Invite me in. I'll eagerly take part, recognize my significance, celebrate my individuality. Don't treat me like a number, and you'll have my loyalty. Thank you very much. Thank you.